You're familiar with the saying, a broken clock is right twice a day, I assume. Well, here we have our New Jersey State Attorney General making a push that I couldn't agree with more. It's just the messenger is a little jacked up on this one because this is the same guy who wants to ignore federal law. So, like I said, a broken clock, right? Definitely. This is coming out of NJ.com, and it's an opinion piece written by the Attorney General himself. Attorney General Grewal, it's time to end mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug crimes. To which, no, it's time to end the entire drug war, sir. This is not a matter of if, this is just a symptom to the overall illness. But let's get into this. One of the first lessons I learned as a young prosecutor was also one of the most important, that our success is measured not by the number of people we convict or the length of the prison sentences we obtain, but by whether justice is done in each and every case. It's a lesson I've carried with me during my time as a federal prosecutor, as the Bergen County prosecutor, and now as New Jersey's Attorney General. And as I reflected on that lesson, it led me to a simple conclusion. The time has come for our state to eliminate mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug offenses. Okay, let me stop it. Drug war. The entire thing. It has to go, sir. I mean, I know people want to do things in baby steps, but this never should have been greenlit in the first place. This was purposefully put into urban communities to break the families apart and rip them to shreds, which is what they've done. So when you sit there and cry about immigrants having their families ripped apart, it's a little tough for us to come and have much sympathy when the same thing has been happening to American families, and particularly urban American families, for generations now. It's helpful to understand how we got here. In 1987, at the height of America's war on drugs, New Jersey followed the lead of other states and enacted laws requiring strict mandatory prison terms for certain drug crimes. Well-intentioned as they may have been, the laws didn't do a particularly good job of distinguishing between high-level traffickers and street corner dealers, and over the last 3 decades, tens of thousands of New Jersey residents have been subject to their broad reach. I dare say millions. There are millions of people in this state. And each and every one of their lives, whether they realize it or not, has been negatively impacted by the drug war. So you're lowballing it there, Grewal. Most problematic are the provisions that automatically render certain offenders ineligible for parole as long portions of their prison sentences, effectively forcing the state to keep even non-violent inmates locked up long after it's clear they no longer pose a threat to the community. This harsh approach comes with real cost. Every dollar New Jersey spends imprisoning nonviolent drug offenders for longer than necessary is a dollar we're not spending on crime prevention, addiction treatment, or reentry efforts. But more importantly, these drug laws have had devastating social costs, especially in our African American communities. Yes, because use us again, which has borne the brunt of New Jersey's mandatory drug sentences. Yeah, like this was done on purpose. And it's not just the mandatory drug sentences, it's the entire culture and environment that the drug war helped facilitate. In recent years, states across the country have come to realize the problems with their 80s era drug laws, and many of them, including Texas, South Carolina, and Indiana, have passed sweeping reforms. Study after study has shown these reforms effectively reduced state prison populations, and did so without prompting a rise in crime rates. Yet even as New Jersey became a national leader in bail reform and other social justice causes, we've only nibbled around the edges of our mandatory drug sentencing laws, and it's time for that. It's time for the entire drug war to go. You're sitting here telling me as we build prisons, as we build detention facilities here in the state, well, not what have you, not in the state, in the county, in Essex County, as they look to build even more facilities to house, the criminals and the bad guys, you're like, oh yeah, we want to reduce the population. This is weird how that works, huh? Yeah, it's running in place. It's spinning wheels. That's it. It's not that all mandatory minimum sentences are ill-conceived. In New Jersey, we require judges to impose prison terms for a handful of other serious crimes, mostly offenses involving violence, illegal gun use, child sex abuse, and official misconduct, and I see no need to eliminate our state's mandatory penalties for terrorists, rapists, and corrupt politicians. And we will continue to aggressively pursue the most violent and dangerous drug criminals, like those operating the deadly opioid mills that were recently dismantled in Harrison and Irvington. But those opioid mills would not be there if we didn't have the drug war in place anyway. See, the deal is the illegality is what gives the drug war and these drugs themselves their value. So if it's extra value, if it's extra valuable in the street, please believe the drug cartels and everybody else who have them, they're going to be doing violent things in order to keep that money flowing. But that doesn't mean we can't recalibrate our sentencing laws when it comes to the mostly young, mostly minority, nonviolent drug offenders who fill our state prisons. We should also consider other sensible sentencing reforms that would promote a more humane criminal justice system. We could end up mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent property offenses like shoplifting that suffer from many of the same problems that the mandatory sentences for drug crimes. We could expand our state's compassionate release program, which would allow elderly and terminally ill inmates to seek release from prison if they can show they are unlikely to reoffend. The problem with the prison thing is that's what you're in there, it changes people. They become institutionalized. I've had friends tell me, man, I need to go to prison because I can't handle the outside world. Literally. So it's getting the people in prison in the first place that's the problem. It's the drug war in and of itself. The fact that we know that Nixon really ushered all of this in. They did this propaganda, this fear-based propaganda. These are all lies. And instead of accepting these lies as lies, and saying, you know what, this is bullshit, let's just stop it. No. We definitely need to keep the system going because, hey, there's so many other components to this that financially profit from the exploitation of these communities and these people. So that's why he's doing his mealy-mouthed, let's end the mandatory minimum sentencing. Which is just, okay, yeah, let's shuffle some papers around as opposed to knocking out the real problem, you know? For my Star Wars fans, they would much prefer to shoot at a couple of X-Wings instead of dig on in the Death Star and blow that up. We could create new pathways for inmates to petition for sentence reductions if they can show they've enrolled in prison education programs, completed their rehabilitation, and demonstrated their readiness to re-enter society. And we could build statutory mechanisms to ensure that any cost savings these programs generate by reducing state prison populations are reinvested in public safety and community engagement initiatives. Man, put all that in the pension, damn it. These types of reforms aren't possible without legislative action, and I'm particularly proud of Governor Phil Murphy, as you would be, a true advocate of progressive change, for reconstituting the long-dormant Criminal Sentencing and Disposition Commission to study potential reforms and make recommendations for new laws. That commission, which includes representatives from my office and is operating under the leadership of exceptional Deborah Portis, the former Chief Justice of our state Supreme Court, is hard at work on these and other topics. But even as policymakers tackle these issues, it's important that the public begin to grapple with the effects of our state's outdated drug laws and start mobilizing for change. You guys know. If you don't know, go to the official elected official. I've been in these streets grinding for the past 3-4 years. So yeah, and the change is already mobilized, brother. Now more than ever, the credibility of our criminal justice system is under attack, and you aren't helping it with your sanctuary state bullshit. You really aren't. Like, this is where the clock is just has completely lost a coil, because with the sanctuary state thing, you are inviting illegality by sitting here saying you're going to harbor people who entered the country illegally. This is why, I mean, as much as I don't believe, when I say lawman, I believe in the enforcers, not the prosecutors, not the people who are paid to basically be bureaucrats. And that's really what it is. It is bureaucracy. And, I admit that there is an important role for prosecutorial people to play, but they're not the ones on the streets. They're not the ones that have to deal with all these policies. Neither are the policymakers themselves. They're not in the streets. They're not of the people that they supposedly represent. And so you end up with people who are so far removed from reality that in one side of their mouth, they can sit here and talk about how the credibility of the criminal justice system is under attack, as if out the other side of their mouth, they're not advocating for lawlessness. Like, you can't have it both ways, Grewal. You really can't. And the best way to restore the public's confidence in this vital institution is to ensure that it works fairly and effectively for all members of our society. The natural-born American citizens, definitely, all of us. As far as all members of our societies, I can't sit here and green like that, because you push that whole sanctuary state thing, and it's folks that came here legally. And then what they like to do is congeal the illegal and the legal, and it's like, well, nope, stop doing that. Actually, there's quite a few legal immigrants that definitely understand the difference between the two, and they're like, no, don't group us all together. So let's reform our state's drug sentencing laws. As a prosecutor and as a citizen, I can think of no better way to serve the cause of justice yet ending the entire drug war. All of it. At this point, I'm so sick of these lies. I'm so sick of the nonsense that they've really pressed throughout the course of really human history, but in particular, the last 30-40 years, with the DARE programs and the cartoon all-stars to the rescue. Oh man, you kids will never have a cartoon all-stars to the rescue. Either ways, guys, that's about the end of this video. All the internet stuff. Like it if you liked it, or dislike it. I'm not scared. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice and want to get interesting videos like this every single day. Share, because sharing is caring, and YouTube's definitely not going to do it. And speak. Let me know, what do you think in the comments? I mean, at this point, isn't it best just to completely get rid of the entire drug war? It has served no purpose. There's not a single soul on this earth that can give me something good that's come of this drug war outside of police budgets. All right, outside of police budgets and politicians being able to say they're tough on crime and like all those old whack ass things that they've been saying all these different years, while sitting there simultaneously selling us right up a river. If you know any of it, if you know anything, any good that came of the drug war, I am happy. My comments are right there. Let me know. And until the next one.